Garry's mod has ruled as the king of sandbox on Steam, but for the first time in ages, it has its first real competitor. And it's made by the same guy, yet it feels completely different and not in a good way. I love Garry's mod. I love spending endless hours on GM Construct. So when S&box was announced as the spiritual successor to GMod, I was excited, only to be met with a game that's even worse than its 20-year-old predecessor. Paid cosmetics shoved down your throat, games that aren't even on par with Roblox, and a general feeling of contempt from the developers set up the game for failure. When a game calls itself a spiritual successor, you expect it to be similar, especially when it's also going for the same aesthetic. But the moment you compare it to GMod, the developers suddenly don't like that. Enough of the foreplay though, the game's name is literally S&box. So is the S&box any good? No, it's bad. It's even worse than GMod's. There's a lot of missing features, there's barely any NPCs, the weapons are underwhelming, it's undercooked. GMod was bad when it came out too. Yeah, but that was Garry against the world. Now it's an entire studio. But here's the real problem. S&box isn't a game. It's a game creation platform, and I'm taking that directly from the description. That's a completely different thing than GMod, and yet it's also a spiritual successor. Firstly, the GMod thing is just used to attract players. S&box is more like Roblox rather than Garry's mod, and the source identity is almost completely gone. Secondly, the game's marketing and pricing is a mess. They did not want to advertise the game on Steam and wanted it to grow organically, yet they priced it at $20 and heavily monetize the cosmetic system. Pick your poison. Either make the game super accessible or monetize it and make it feel premium. To top it all off, the game will supposedly go free to play in 2 years. And that's stupid. Why are you punishing people for wanting to play your game early? Also, before the game officially released, you could add it to your Steam library for free. However, depending on their own criteria, you will either get to keep the game or have it removed from your library and be forced to buy it. That's why this video got delayed by 2 weeks, but at least Garry gave me a nice dress so I can feel pretty after getting fucked. Okay, but I love Garry, so I'm gonna give S&box a chance as a game creation platform. And somehow it's even worse. The most popular game mode on S&box isn't even S&box itself. It's a version of Dark RP where you're not even getting power tripped by 12-year-olds, so it's obviously worse. The other game modes, they're made with the sole intention of making money. And that's because S&box has a player fund funded by Garry's mod profits. The more players your game gets, the more money you make, which incentivizes developers to make addicting slop games like Mow the Lawn or S-Miner. Cherry on top being that they're just copies of Roblox games. What I'm trying to say is that the player fund was a mistake. When your game is only starting to build its community, the worst thing you can do is use money as motivation instead of passion. Look, it isn't all that bad. Underneath the endless heap of copy and paste games, there are some that genuinely show promise. However, S&box has been in development for 9 years and has been playable for 5. At least the S&box game mode should be better than the one in GMod. Facepunch might have dropped the ball, but a lot of the player-made games feel underwhelming as well. And there's a good reason for that. Around 2023, Garry had done major retooling. He completely changed the core of the game, including the entity system and multiplayer, which made all the games made up until that point unplayable. That's a major blow, and that sucks and I'm sorry is nice, but the fact that it isn't released isn't a very valid argument when your game is reliant on user-created experiences. This was effectively a major setback for all developers. At this very moment, I started to notice a pattern, a ride-or-die attitude from Facepunch that I can't understand. GMod was built by the community. But now, making that community happy isn't even a priority. It's more like, this is a passion project, we wanted to do it, you either like it or not. And that's okay, but don't be passive-aggressive about it in your blog posts. Hell, if this game was made with zero connection to GMod, the feedback would have probably been a lot worse. So S&box shows promise, but it still has a long way to go. And it's hard to look past that when the developers are doing everything to be unlikable. This isn't a hate video, this is tough love. I wouldn't spend spend 1,000 hours on Gmod if I didn't care. But sometimes it's important to remember your roots. And if your roots are your community, you should treasure them. Facepunch is doing their own thing, and in this case, it's hurting more than helping. This game doesn't have mixed reviews because it's not Gmod. It's because it's underwhelming. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe.